Hi, welcome to Conflict Story, where we bring you the best and most fascinating stories just for you. Let's dive right into one of those stories. It begins like this.
I never imagined that a simple disagreement with a homeowners association could turn into a full-blown legal battle. But that's exactly what happened. My name's Daniel, and for the past 12 years, I've lived in what I consider my dream home, a quaint lakeside cabin in northern Michigan. The soft rustle of leaves and the gentle lapping of water against the shore have been the soundtrack to my life. It's a modest place, but it's mine, and I cherish every bit of it. I inherited the cabin from my uncle, who built it in the 1960s as a retreat from his busy city life. Over the decades, the surrounding area evolved, with modern houses cropping up along the shoreline. Yet my little corner of paradise remained untouched, a tranquil refuge amid the changing landscape. When I moved in after my uncle's passing, I was reluctant to join the local homeowners association. I'd heard enough stories about overbearing committees and absurd rules to make me cautious. However, my neighbors assured me it was merely a formality, a way to maintain the shared dock and keep the community's aesthetic intact. For years, it was just that, a low-key arrangement with occasional disagreements over minor issues, like mailbox styles or lawn maintenance. Everything changed when a man named Curtis Henley was elected as the Homeowners Association president. Curtis had only moved into the neighborhood 3 years prior, purchasing one of the most extravagant properties on the lake. From the moment he arrived, Curtis made his ambitions clear. He wanted to upgrade the community and boost property values. Most of us rolled our eyes and ignored him, assuming his enthusiasm would fizzle out. But Curtis was relentless. With the help of a few like-minded residents, he reshaped the Homeowner Association Board into his personal council, pushing through sweeping changes. At first, the new rules were minor annoyances: strict guidelines for exterior paint colors, mandatory landscaping requirements, and restrictions on outdoor furniture. But it wasn't long before Curtis set his sights on something bigger. He began hinting that certain properties, including mine, were underutilized and would be better suited for redevelopment. I dismissed his remarks as idle chatter, until I received a certified letter from the Homeowners Association claiming that my property belonged to the Homeowner Association. They alleged that the land was part of a misfiled deed and that I had 30 days to vacate. I was floored. The cabin had been in my family for decades. I had the deed, the tax records, everything. Yet here was this letter, threatening to take it all away. I immediately called my neighbor, Peter, who had lived in the area even longer than I had. Peter listened quietly as I explained the situation, then let out a low whistle. "This has Curtis written all over it," he said. "He's been pushing for a new marina project at the Homeowner Association meetings. Your land is prime waterfront. It's exactly what he needs to make it happen." Together, we pored over the letter. It referenced documents supposedly uncovered by the Homeowner Association, claiming that a clerical error decades ago had transferred ownership of certain properties, including mine, to the association. The timing was suspicious, to say the least. Curtis had been meeting with developers over the past few months, pitching ideas for a luxury resort on the lakefront. My property's location was critical to his plan. The next day, I hired a lawyer, Amanda Clark. Amanda had a reputation for being fierce and thorough, and she didn't disappoint. After reviewing the letter, she was incredulous. "This is a blatant land grab," she said. "They're banking on you being too overwhelmed to fight back. But they picked the wrong target." Amanda and I began assembling evidence. Decades of property records, tax statements, and even old photos of my uncle building the cabin. Meanwhile, Curtis ramped up his campaign. At homeowner association meetings, he painted me as a squatter, accusing my family of exploiting a legal loophole to claim land that wasn't ours. His cronies on the board echoed his rhetoric, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and hostility. Despite this, a handful of neighbors, including Peter, stood by me. We started holding informal gatherings to counter Curtis's narrative, sharing the truth about his motives and the impact his plans would have on the community. It became clear that Curtis wasn't just targeting me. He intended to reshape the entire neighborhood into a playground for the wealthy, regardless of who got hurt in the process. The tension reached a boiling point during a heated homeowner association meeting. I decided to attend, armed with documents proving my ownership. As Curtis delivered a polished speech about the benefits of redevelopment, I stood up and interrupted. "Curtis, enough," I said. my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "This is my home, and you have no right to take it from me." The room fell silent. Curtis smirked. "Mr. Logan, I understand this is emotional for you, but the facts are clear. The association—" "The facts," I shot back, holding up the deed to my property. "Here's a fact. My family has owned this cabin for over 50 years. Here's another. You're using fabricated documents to try and steal it." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Curtis' composure faltered for a moment before he regained his smug demeanor. "We'll let the courts decide," he said, dismissively waving a hand. "This isn't personal, Daniel. It's about what's best for the community." I laughed bitterly. "No, Curtis, it's about what's best for you, and I'll see you in court." As I walked out of the meeting, Peter and several other neighbors followed, their support giving me strength. Curtis had underestimated us. This fight was far from over, and I was ready to defend my home with everything I had. The legal proceedings began with a flurry of motions and depositions. My lawyer, Amanda, wasted no time digging into the so-called evidence Curtis and the Homeowners Association were using to justify their claim. What she uncovered was both infuriating and illuminating. The newly discovered documents cited by the Homeowner Association had been conveniently produced by a private investigator, hired by Curtis. Amanda found glaring inconsistencies in the paperwork, including dates that didn't align with county records and signatures that appeared forged. It was clear that Curtis was playing a dangerous game, and Amanda was determined to expose him. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in our once peaceful lakeside community grew increasingly tense. Curtis doubled down on his smear campaign against me, spreading rumors that I was obstructing progress and selfishly clinging to a property that didn't belong to me. Flyers appeared in mailboxes accusing me of holding back the neighborhood, and Curtis even arranged for a developer to give a presentation at an homeowner association meeting, showcasing a vision of luxury condos and upscale amenities that would replace my cabin and several other properties. Despite the mounting pressure, I refused to back down. With Amanda's guidance, I filed a countersuit against the Homeowner Association, accusing them of fraud and harassment. The lawsuit didn't just challenge their claims to my property, it also called for a full audit of the association's finances and decision-making processes under Curtis's leadership. The move sent shockwaves through the community. Some neighbors who had previously stayed on the sidelines began to voice their support. Others, afraid of being targeted themselves, kept their distance. One evening, as I was reviewing documents with Amanda at the cabin, Peter stopped by with news. "You're not going to believe this," he said, holding up a stack of papers. "I managed to get my hands on some old homeowner association meeting minutes from before Curtis took over. Look at this." The documents revealed something shocking, a proposal from years ago to sell portions of the community's shared lakefront land to developers. The proposal had been overwhelmingly rejected at the time, but the language bore a striking resemblance to Curtis's current plans. Amanda's eyes lit up as she scanned the pages. "This proves that Curtis's ambitions didn't start with your property," she said. "He's been working toward this for years, and he's using the homeowner association as a front to push his agenda." The discovery bolstered our case and gave us a new angle to pursue. Amanda subpoenaed additional records, uncovering a web of questionable dealings between Curtis and the developers he had been courting. Emails and financial documents painted a damning picture. Curtis had been receiving kickbacks in exchange for his efforts to clear the way for redevelopment. The evidence not only strengthened my countersuit, but also raised serious ethical and legal questions about Curtis' conduct as homeowner association president. As our legal strategy gained traction, Curtis's demeanor shifted. His confident bravado gave way to thinly veiled hostility. He began avoiding direct interactions with me, instead sending his lawyer to deliver veiled threats and lowball settlement offers. "We'll let you stay," one offer read, "if you agree to sign over partial rights to the property and allow for future development." Amanda and I laughed at the absurdity of it. The turning point came during a heated deposition. Curtis had been summoned to answer questions under oath, and Amanda's relentless questioning left him visibly rattled. "Mr. Henley," she said, holding up an email exchange between him and a developer, "can you explain why you're discussing potential profits from properties you claim belong to the homeowner association?" Curtis fumbled for an answer. I was exploring options to benefit the community," he stammered. Options that just happened to involve you personally profiting? Amanda pressed. The room fell silent. Curtis's lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. Amanda had exposed the self-serving nature of Curtis's plans, and the cracks in his story were becoming impossible to ignore. Outside the deposition, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. Peter clapped me on the shoulder. "He's unraveling," he said with a grin. "You've got him on the ropes, Daniel." But the fight was far from over. Curtis and his allies on the Homeowner Association board were still trying to rally support for their vision of redevelopment, using fear tactics and false promises to sway undecided neighbors. At one particularly contentious homeowner association meeting, Curtis unveiled a new strategy, claiming that if I won the lawsuit, it would bankrupt the association and force everyone's dues to skyrocket. "This isn't just about one man's property," Curtis declared, pointing dramatically in my direction. "It's about the future of our community. Are we going to let selfishness and stubbornness destroy everything we've worked for?" I stood up, my voice steady but firm. "No, Curtis, what's destroying this community is your greed and dishonesty. This isn't about progress. It's about power, and we won't let you take what doesn't belong to you." The room erupted into heated debate. Some neighbors voiced their agreement, while others seemed swayed by Curtis's scare tactics. But as the meeting dragged on, it became clear that the tide was beginning to turn. People were starting to question Curtis's motives and the true cost of his grand vision. By the time the meeting ended, I felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Amanda's expertise, Peter's unwavering support, and the growing number of neighbors willing to stand with me, I knew we had a fighting chance. This wasn't just about saving my cabin anymore. It was about protecting the heart and soul of our community from those who would exploit it for their own gain. The weeks leading up to the trial were a whirlwind of preparation and mounting tension. Amanda worked tirelessly, combing through every piece of evidence, every homeowner association bylaw, and every obscure property record she could find. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that Curtis had not only overstepped his bounds, but had orchestrated a campaign of deceit that went far beyond my property. Meanwhile, Curtis's desperation was becoming increasingly obvious. His smear campaigns grew more aggressive, with new flyers accusing me of trying to undermine community progress. He even went so far as to hire a private security company to patrol the area, claiming it was necessary to protect residents from potential disruptions. The sight of uniformed guards patrolling our peaceful lakeside neighborhood only fueled the growing unease among my neighbors. One afternoon, Peter stopped by with an update from the informal coalition of residents who had banded together to oppose Curtis. "He's losing support," Peter said, a rare smile breaking across his face. "Even some of the board members are starting to question him. They don't want to go down with his ship." Despite this encouraging news, the stress was taking its toll. I spent countless sleepless nights poring over documents, haunted by the thought of losing my home. The cabin had been my sanctuary, a place where I felt connected to my family's legacy and the natural beauty around me. The idea of it being bulldozed to make way for luxury condos was almost too much to bear. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed, with many of my neighbors in attendance. Curtis sat at the defendant's table, flanked by his expensive legal team, his expression a mix of arrogance and unease. Amanda, on the other hand, radiated confidence as she laid out our case. "Your Honor," she began, "this case is not just about property rights. It's about exposing a pattern of abuse and corruption within this homeowners association, led by its president, Mr. Henley." She methodically presented the evidence, starting with the forged documents and moving on to Curtis's financial dealings with developers. Her arguments were clear and compelling, and it wasn't long before cracks began to show in the homeowner association's defense. Curtis' lawyer tried to argue that the documents in question were legitimate and that the homeowner association's actions were in the best interest of the community. But under Amanda's cross-examination, their narrative quickly unraveled. Key witnesses admitted to feeling pressured by Curtis to support his plans, and financial records revealed payments that directly linked Curtis to the developers he claimed to have no connection with. The turning point came when Curtis himself was called to the stand. Amanda didn't waste any time. "Mr. Henley," she began, "can you explain why your personal bank account shows multiple deposits from the development firm proposing the luxury condos?" Curtis shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Those were Consultation fees, he stammered. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Consultation fees for a project that required the removal of properties owned by members of this community, including my client's home? Curtis' face turned red. I was trying to improve the neighborhood. The community would benefit. Benefit from your secret financial arrangements? Amanda interrupted. It seems the only person who stood to benefit was you. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as Amanda pressed on, dismantling Curtis's justifications piece by piece. By the time she finished, it was clear that his credibility had been thoroughly destroyed. As the trial progressed, the tide continued to turn in our favor. Several neighbors who had been hesitant to get involved came forward to testify about Curtis's intimidation tactics and backdoor dealings. Their accounts painted a damning picture of a man who had exploited his position for personal gain at the expense of the community he claimed to serve. After days of testimony and arguments, the judge finally delivered his verdict. Based on the evidence presented, he said, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Logan. Furthermore, the court recognizes the egregious nature of the defendant's actions and recommends further investigation into the financial practices of the Homeowners Association under Mr. Henley's leadership. Relief washed over me as the words sank in. The judge not only reaffirmed my ownership of the cabin, but also ordered the Homeowner Association to cover my legal fees and pay damages for the stress and harassment they had caused. Curtis sat silently, his face a mask of defeat, as the judge's ruling effectively dismantled his schemes. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of neighbors greeted me with cheers and applause. Peter pulled me into a bear hug, his voice thick with emotion. You did it, Daniel. You stood up to him, and you won. Amanda smiled, her professional composure softening for a moment. This victory wasn't just for you, she said. It was for everyone in this community who's been affected by Curtis's greed. Now you can start to rebuild. In the days that followed, the aftermath of the trial rippled through the neighborhood. Curtis resigned as Homeowner Association president in disgrace, and several of his allies on the board followed suit. A new leadership team was elected with a commitment to transparency and community-focused decision-making. As for Curtis, rumors swirled that he had sold his property and left town, unable to face the community he had tried to exploit. Though the legal battle was over, I knew the work of healing and rebuilding our neighborhood was just beginning. But as I stood on my porch that evening, watching the sun set over the lake, I felt a profound sense of peace. My home and the community I loved had been saved, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together, stronger than ever. In the weeks following the trial, our lakeside community began to rebuild not just its leadership, but its sense of trust and unity. The new Homeowners Association board, led by Peter, immediately set to work addressing the fallout from Curtis's schemes. Transparency became the cornerstone of their approach. They organized town hall meetings to openly discuss plans and ensure every resident had a voice. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly a community again. As for me, I poured my energy into restoring my cabin and reconnecting with the neighbors who had supported me during the ordeal. One Saturday morning, as I was repairing the wooden steps leading down to the lake, Lisa, one of my neighbors, stopped by with a tray of cookies. Daniel, I just wanted to say thank you, she said, handing me the tray. If you hadn't stood up to Curtis, who knows what would have happened to our homes? You reminded us what it means to fight for what's right. Her words stayed with me. The fight had been grueling, but knowing it had made a difference for so many people was deeply rewarding. The new board also took steps to address the harm Curtis had caused. They reached out to residents who had been pressured into selling their properties, offering support and exploring ways to help them return if they wished. Meanwhile, Curtis's fall from grace was complete. The investigation recommended by the judge revealed even more unethical practices, including misappropriation of homeowner association funds. He faced hefty fines and legal consequences, ensuring he would not be able to pull a similar stunt elsewhere. The developers he had been working with abandoned their plans for the luxury condos, recognizing that the community would never support such a project. To celebrate the victory, Peter and the new board organized a community barbecue by the lake. It was the first large gathering since the trial, and the atmosphere was one of joy and relief. Families brought homemade dishes, children splashed in the water, and neighbors who hadn't spoken in years reconnected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Peter stood to give a toast. To Daniel, he began, raising his glass, for reminding us all that one person's courage can inspire a community to stand together, and to everyone here for proving that when we unite, we're stronger than any challenge. Cheers erupted, and I felt a lump form in my throat. The fight had been long and exhausting, but in that moment, surrounded by the people I'd fought for, it all felt worth it. In the months that followed, life returned to a peaceful rhythm. The new board implemented measures to prevent any future abuses of power, including term limits for leadership positions and stricter oversight of financial decisions. They also worked to strengthen the community's bonds by organizing regular events, from cleanup days to holiday celebrations. Slowly but surely, the scars left by Curtis's tenure began to heal. For me, the cabin took on an even deeper significance. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was a symbol of resilience and the power of standing up for what's right. I spent more time than ever enjoying the lake, taking my old rowboat out in the mornings and fishing just like my uncle had taught me. I also became more involved in the community, joining the homeowner association board to ensure that our neighborhood's future remained bright. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the stars reflect on the water, I thought about everything that had happened. The fight against Curtis had been one of the most challenging experiences of my life, but it had also brought out the best in our community. We had faced adversity together and come out stronger. As the wind rustled through the trees, I felt a profound sense of peace. This cabin, this community, this lake, they were worth fighting for. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow.